I'm your huckleberry.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're here today with another video in our PSA Dagger series. In this one, we're going to go ahead and try to see if we can install the new Glock performance trigger into a PSA Dagger. Now, from what I've been reading online, the Glock performance trigger does advertise as only being compatible with Gen 5 Glocks. However, I've also been reading that it will work with the PSA Dagger or Gen 3 Glocks in general, so long as you make a few modifications. Now, on daggers, you do not have to do anything about trimming the body of the trigger housing. From what I've read, I haven't tried it yet, but you do have to swap out your Glock plate with a Gen 5 Glock plate, like you can see here. So I've got the end plate for the slide, I've got the Glock performance trigger, and I have our PSA Dagger. But before I do the swap, one thing I want to do is I want to see what kind of accuracy gains we get from putting a better trigger on the Dagger, because I do feel like that is the crux of the PSA Dagger. So to start things off, I'm going to go ahead and do some, we're going to go ahead and clear the weapon, empty magazine, empty chamber, nothing in the mag wheel, pull the trigger. I'm going to go ahead and grab my trigger gauge, and let's see what the factory Dagger weighs in at. Let's go ahead and rack the slide. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. We got our Wheeler trigger pull scale. Let's see what this Dagger's coming in at. This is a complete factory Dagger. Nothing has been done, no changing the connector or anything. According to Tactical Pontoon, the Daggers all have 3.5 pound connectors anyway. However, due to the springs and other geometry in the trigger, it does not pull at 3.5 pounds. I can tell you that just from pulling the trigger. But let's go ahead and see what we actually can pull with our trigger gauge. Alright, that pulled in just a hair over 6 pounds. Let's try it again. We'll get 3 pulls. Now, I am trying to stay toward the bottom here so I can make sure I activate the Dagger trigger. Once again, that pulled 6.25 pounds. Let's go ahead and slide that back to 0, and we'll try one more for a 3 pull average. You got to get a kind of an angle on this to get that trigger to activate. All right, and that pulled in 5.75 pounds. So 5.75, 6.25, and 6. We're going to call it a 6 pound average on the factory PSA Dagger. Now, I will say that this Dagger in particular, it's not a horrible trigger. It does have that long, like once you get to the wall here, you still have a very long rolling break. And that's what I'm trying to get rid of, because what I'm finding is it's difficult to keep that dot directly on a bullseye when I'm trying to make shots. And I feel like that's what's causing this thing not to group very well. So let's go ahead now. We'll take this out to the range. I'll show you guys how I'm grouping with this Dagger. And like I said, it could just be me. I'm not an expert by any stretch. But I tend to group much better with other guns. So I want to see what I can do to get better performance out of this one. And we'll see how it does at 7 yards. We're going to put 3 5-shot groups down and see what they look like. Let's go ahead and go to the range. I'll see you guys there. Alright guys, so it got a little darker than I expected, but here's the PSA Dagger with the factory trigger. I've got 15 rounds. We've got 3 targets down here at 7 yards. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot each one of those targets with a 7-yard, 5-round group and see what kind of grouping we have. This will also give me a good opportunity to use the light. So let's go ahead and see what we get. Okay, go ahead to the second target. All right, and going to the third target. I clearly miscounted because I know I had 15 rounds, so I probably went 6, 6, and 3. But that's what it is. Let's go check these targets and see what they look like. Come on. All right, so actually not too bad. You got 4, 5, and 6. Over here, we got all 6. And there's the last 3. So actually, this thing groups a little better than I gave it credit for. But we're going to see if the Glock Performance trigger improves that. I'm going to go in there now. We'll swap that trigger out, see what that looks like. And then tomorrow, when it gets bright, we'll come out here and test that out. See you then. All right, guys. So I just finished putting in the new Glock Performance trigger in my full-size dagger. And I got to say, I'm really impressed with the results. So go ahead and clear it for camera. Nothing in the gun. Let's go ahead and take a look at that trigger pull. So it has about, at the bottom tip of the trigger, I'd say 1/4 inch of take up. It's a very clear wall. You can definitely feel it. And then just a sharp break. Really nice trigger. You reset just about there. And then another sharp break. So one thing I've noticed in a few other videos, during the reset, the trigger does go back a little bit. I don't think that's really a big deal. It does have a slightly longer reset because of it. See if I can capture that on camera here. So I'm keeping pressure back. You see the trigger drops back a little bit during the reset. But it's a super good break. I've actually got my scale here. Here's the original dagger trigger. Installation was a breeze. Just knocked out 3 pins. I'm not supposed to show that on YouTube. That's why I didn't do it. But there are 100 videos where you can see how to swap a Glock trigger or dagger trigger. No problems. It did not have to modify the Glock Performance trigger in any way to make it fit the dagger frame. It was a direct drop in. The only thing I did have to change was the slide plate. Had to put a Gen 5 slide plate in it. You can see that there. It just has the 2 symmetrical cutouts. But the thing is working great. Let's go ahead and put the trigger scale on it and see how it's pulling. Full disclosure, I have pulled this quite a bit already, so I know what it's going to pull. Go ahead and put it there at the bottom. And we're getting, see if you can see that, just under 4 pounds. Call it 3 3/4 pounds. That's not bad. We'll go ahead and do it again. We'll get an average of 3 like we did with the factory trigger. That was even better. That was right at 3.5 pounds. See if I can get that to focus. Right at 3.5 pounds. We'll go ahead and do one more. And again, 3.5 pounds. So this averages 3.5 to 3 3/4 pounds with a very, very crisp break. It does have a little bit more take up than it may need to have. I don't know. I didn't design it, but it does maintain all your Glock safeties. If you're not pulling on the paddle, it will not go off. But once you get that press, super good. Really happy with this thing, guys. I think for the money, all in, pretty sure I picked up this Glock Performance trigger on Sportsman's Guide. I want to say it was like $82. Then I picked up a Glock 5 end plate for like $8. So $90 all in for the upgrade. Well worth it in my opinion. I've got a few different pistols here that have pretty good triggers. I'm going to show you just for comparison. So this is my compact dagger. As you can see, also clear. This has got a Serpico light trigger in it on a factory trigger housing. This also has a pretty decent break, but not nearly as good as that. There's your take up. And it still has that rolling break. It's you have a wall there, but you have to pull through the wall about 1/8 of an inch before it actually breaks. So it's not nearly as crisp as the Glock Performance trigger, but that is pretty decent. Let's see what that one pulls. I'm only going to pull each of these once for the purpose of time. Go ahead and depress the safety paddle. Nope, let me reset the gauge. And let's see what this one breaks. So as you can see, with a factory Glock internal, with factory dagger internals, with just the Serpico light trigger housing, that one is pulling just under 4 pounds, but it's not nearly as good a break. The one I would compare this to the most as far as the break would be very similar to a Canic trigger. So this is my Canic Met SFX. This has nothing in it. It's clear. This does have a Freedom Smith trigger installed, so I can go ahead and tell you now, this break is much better than the Glock Performance, but honestly, not by that much. The Glock Performance really, really impressed me. Let's see what this one breaks at. So right there, we just got almost 4.5 pounds. Go ahead and pull that one more time. I feel like this one actually is a little better. I may have just pulled a little too high on the trigger. Yeah, there we go. That was right at 4 pounds. And this is probably the best trigger that I own in a handgun. That is essentially nothing there. That's a really good trigger. Glock Performance isn't far off from it, though. Then we also have my Thesis 1911 DS Duty. Go ahead and show clear the camera for that as well. Just double checking for myself. I know these are all unloaded. Always best to second check, double check. The fucking second check is, but we're double checking them. Go ahead and depress the tang safety. We're going to start to pull. And that broke at 4 3/4 pounds. Go ahead and do that one more time. I know I said I was only going to do each one once, but, you know, I lied. Let's see where this one breaks this time. About the same, 4 3/4. So I would say that's about average for that. This is all factory internals with a Fusion Firearms trigger shoe. But I gotta say, this Glock Performance trigger really impressed me for the money. So that's all I'm gonna say about it. I have not shot it yet, but I've been dry firing it quite a bit. And I gotta say, I'm really impressed with it, especially over the factory OEM Dagger trigger. This thing is a hell of an upgrade. Let's go ahead and take it out to the range and see how it prints on paper. See you there. All right, guys, so we're out here on the range. Got the PSA Dagger with the Glock Performance trigger. I haven't fired it yet, so I'm going to go ahead and take some shots now. We're here at about 10 yards, and I'm just going to put this thing on steel. Really, I just want to see how it feels, and then I'll probably move over, take some shots out there at about 80 yards. So let's go ahead now. Let's get the first shots down, and I'll give you my impressions on how this trigger feels. Pretty fucking good. That is an incredible improvement over the factory Dagger trigger. Just oh, such a sweet break. Go ahead and do that one more time. That is great, guys. All right, let me go ahead and put one more mag through it, and then we'll go ahead and put this thing on paper. It would help if I take the empty mag out first. All right, I'm going to go ahead and try to make some shots here at distance. Hopefully the camera can see me because I can't really see it. Let's go ahead and see how this does. Let's see where I'm making the breaks. Alright, once I figured out where to hold, that's actually really good. Certainly easy to make those long distance shots, but I'm going to go ahead now, we're going to readjust, and I'm going to go ahead and put a few shots on paper, and let's see how the groups have improved with this. See you in a moment. Alright guys, so we're back here at 7 yards. We have the PSA Dagger with the Glock Performance trigger. We're going to go ahead now and shoot 3 5-shot groups here at 7 yards. See if we've gotten an increase in accuracy or a tighter group. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. That was pretty decent. Let's go ahead and go to the second one. I jerked that one. That was missed. All right, so I got one flyer in that group. Just checking to make sure my optic's tight. All right, one flyer in that group. Let's go ahead and go to the third one. All right, and that's the third group. Let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so 7 yards. That's a 5-shot group. Super happy with that. If we ignore that one, that's pretty good. I'm good with that. And this one, definitely the best group of the day. Check that out. 7 yards with the Glock Performance trigger. I think it's safe to say that it definitely helps the Dagger. It's not a, a fix-all. It's not going to fix fundamental problems. But if you got good sight alignment and trigger control, a good trigger would definitely help. So I'm really happy about this. I'm going to go ahead and set up back at the table and just do some regular shooting. And let's... Alright guys, so I had to reload a few mags. I hope I fast forwarded through that so I wasn't too boring. Let's go ahead and put another mag through this thing, see how it feels. Definitely a lot faster with that Glock Performance trigger. I'm able to stay on target, and I'm able to break my shots a lot cleaner. I'm checking my optic every once in a while because after I did those shots at long range earlier, I did notice that my optic screws had backed out a little bit, so I did have to tighten them up before I shot that group. Let's go ahead and see how we do on this plate rack. It would help if I racked the gun, wouldn't it? Well, it's not terrible, but it's not the best either. Pretty good, pretty good. Really liking the Glock Performance trigger so far. Definitely a massive improvement over the factory Dagger trigger. Oh, got a malfunction. Let's see what happened there. Gun wasn't all the way in battery. No strike on the round. Not sure what caused that, but we'll definitely keep an eye on it. Oh, I do know what caused it. My front sight came off. Oh, great. Well, it looks like I'll be trying to get in touch with PSA's warranty because my front sight worked itself loose. And it looks like the screw is still in there, and that's probably what caused it not to go into battery. Let me go ahead and see if I can get that screw out. She is a little hot. All right, so I got the screw out. I'll try to find the front sight here. But luckily we are running a red dot, so I don't really need that front sight right this moment. Hopefully PSA, Matt, hopefully you'll send me another front sight. Glad I caught that on camera. Let's go ahead and put this thing back together and get back to shooting. That barrel's hot as shit. I may have to put a blur over this so YouTube doesn't strike this video for disassembly and reassembly. Alright, make sure I don't lose the screw. I'll try to find that sight here in a moment. Shit happens, I guess. That is a little disappointing that the front sight came out, but I have heard of that happening to other people. But let's go ahead and see how this thing does with this last magazine. Alright, cycled that mag pretty good. Went back into battery on that one, so overall, at least this video is not about the front sight. Trigger, hot as fuck barrel. That trigger is a massive improvement, guys. Super fucking happy with it. Yep. Super happy with it. So if you're looking for an improvement to your factory PSA Dagger or even your factory Glock trigger, definitely check out the Glock Performance trigger. I'm going to go look for my front sight. See you guys next time. Peace.
The front sight was never seen again.